Howdy, fuckers! Welcome back to another day of, yes, this is what I look like on a regular basis, my eyes included, okay? I don't know what a healthy sleep schedule is. If I had to go to bed before 3 a.m., I would feel... No, actually, that would probably feel pretty good. But today is not the day to bully me because I can't get a healthy night of sleep. Today is the day to bully me because I'm a fucking nerd! On my last video, a user by the name of Satan Louie, hi Louie, commented and expressed their disappointment in the fact that my board game video got scrapped and never posted. And yeah, well, it kind of got me sad because I was so excited for that video, and what I was making was not what I had envisioned, so I ended up scrapping it. However, Cthulhu and I have decided that we're going to try and remake that video by scraping away all of the fat that kind of filled and bloated the video. And by scraping away the fat that filled and bloated the video, I mean, I'm going to cut out all of the board games that I wanted to talk about, except for a single game. So allow me to introduce you to my current quarantine obsession. This right here is my current money sink. This is the game that got me excited to make that board game video in the first place. This is the game that I was most excited to talk about in that video. This giant hunk of a board game is Arkham Horror, the card game. As you can see, I have fallen a bit in love with the game over the past couple of months, and while I promise to try and not get carried away, I would still buckle yourselves in, because this game is an absolute fucking doozy. So, let's talk about Arkham. I'm gonna do my best here to try to summarize the core of this game. So, here we go. In Arkham Horror, you play as investigators, doing what investigators do best. Killing monsters. I mean, they're investigating. You and your team run amok around the map, collecting clues and fighting monsters as needed so you can advance your story before the wandering souls of the mythos advance theirs. You do this by first selecting your investigator and building a deck around that investigator before the game starts. There are 5 classes to choose your investigator from, ranging from the trigger-happy guardians that won't back down to a fight, to the mystical and terrifying mystics that can bend the rules of reality to their will at a very dangerous price. The deck you build is your weapon. It is your means of survival. It is your means of staying sane. It is your means of finding clues, and it is your means of fighting monsters. It is the core to gameplay. However, your deck can also be your downfall because each investigator has to add a random weakness and then their own specialty weakness that, if drawn, can mean the difference between escaping and living to see another day and falling prey to the deep, dark, wet, slimy mysteries that the mythos has in store for you. But once your deck is finished and you're ready to play, all you have to do is set up the table. You can jump right into the atmospheric and story-driven world that Arkham has waiting for you. You see, while the deck you make is the core to gameplay, the story that Arkham takes you on and the atmosphere oozing out of it is the core of the game. Gameplay revolves around picking which campaign you want to embark on and engaging in that story and that campaign, because how well or bad you do actually affects all of the following stories in that campaign. Whether you're a god or whether you're trash affects the story and affects how NPCs treat you following the events of whatever happened in that deed that caused you to fuck up. So let's say you're trying to find an NPC and oh shit, you let that NPC die. Well, let's hope they didn't have any vital information for you because you're not getting that. Oh, they did? Oh, the vital information actually helped you find another NPC you need? Oh shit, well you missed out on that. Good fucking luck. And then it just snowballs from there and becomes a big snowball of piss and shit and disaster, and you can never do anything right because you're always doing bad. I'm selling this game, right? Believe it or not though, that reason is actually why I adore this game. This is a card game that plays almost like an RPG, like classic Fallout, because the choices you make affect the story, and so you have to take a character and you have to build a deck and custom tailor it to that character. You get to build them however you like, and then you have to make choices that are significant following through that whole game. A decision you make in the first chapter could have life-altering consequences in the last chapter. You have to make choices that actually resonate in the game. A bonus thing you can try if you ever get your hands on this game is to actually lean into the role play and pretend that you are the character that you have chosen. In this case, Zoe Samras, the chef. I apologize for butchering that. But Zoe believes God has come to her and chosen her as his personal monster-slaying and evil-purging prophet. So if you lean into that and make choices that you think that this crazy stabby woman would make, it's really cool. I like it a lot. The game always keeps you on your toes and never lets you take a sigh of relief, because just as you think you've got the game in your grips, well, here comes a giant Shoggoth that's busting down the doors. It's gonna start eating everything, and now you're on a time limit, so you have to decide whether or not what you're doing is really worth it. So, you know, get the fuck out of there. Plus, there are a countless number of standalone expansions or full-blown separate campaigns that come with 6 bonus chapters on top of the boxes already too, that you can use to get even more story and more adventure, and you can mix match however you like. You can play one standalone and slot it into a bigger campaign, or string 3 massive campaigns together to create a 3,000 fucking day adventure with all of your friends. But well, I should probably address the elephant in the room then, shouldn't I? Arkham Horror is what is known as an LCG, or a living card game, which means, unfortunately, the game is not a one-and-done purchase. Obviously. You could, however, if you wanted, just buy the core set and play with those investigators and play through that campaign over and over and experiment with stuff. But that actually leads to one of the grossest money-grabbing schemes that I have ever fallen prey to. You see, because if you really want to engage in Arkham Horror's core gameplay mechanic, the deck building and experimenting and like building out your character, well, you're gonna have to bite the bullet and buy a second fucking core set. Because when you buy just one core set, it doesn't come with enough unique player cards to overlap classes. So if you're playing with your friend, let's hope that you guys don't want to both play Guardians, or you don't want to have any overlapping subclasses, because there are not enough cards to go around. And so let's say you're like me and every other person in the Arkham community who has bitten the bullet and bought a second core pack. Well, now you've got all of the unique player cards you need. However, you also now have duplicates of all of the gameplay and story cards you only need one copy of. So in order to play well, you have to buy cards that you don't need with cards that you do need. And if Fantasy Flight really wanted to go down this path, which, whatever, I'm okay with it, there are worse things out there, but if they really wanted to, what they should do is they should release just a pack of core set player cards, so that you can buy the cards you need, so you can engage in the deck building mechanics without overlap. However, you're not stuck with a double purchase of a box and cards that you just don't need anymore. Thankfully, this does not expand to any of the expansions. Every expansion comes with 2 copies of the unique player cards, so you get everything that you need in those expansions. This is only a core set thing. So once you do it for the core set, you don't have to buy every pack twice, I promise. But, and this is a thick, fat, Jane from Dead by Daylight, thick caboose butt, all right? A living card game is not the same as a trading card game, something along the lines of Magic the Gathering. The difference here being that a living card game does expand and grow and get new characters and new cards and expansions and the like, but you know what you are buying in every single pack. There is no random packs, and that's so fucking nice. When you buy the Dunwich Legacy expansion, or the murder at the Excelsior Hotel standalone scenario, well, you know exactly what cards are coming in those boxes. So you don't have to open up like 48 booster packs for the hopes of finding the one card you need. I'm looking at you, Charlie. That was mean. Charlie, play. I'm sorry. That was terrible. Charlie, do whatever you want, please. I'm sorry. That does, however, eliminate any like resale market for these cards. If you're looking for a game that you can like invest in and trade and collect and then like sell for rare cards or whatever, that is not Arkham Horror. But that's not the reason that I come to this game. I come to this game to experience all of the dark and eerie and oozy, slimy secrets that are hidden and all of these different expansions and releases, of which, since the game's release in 2016, there have been a metric fuck ton of. So there have been 6 massive expansions, each with 6 Mythos packs to make like an 8 scenario campaign. And then there have been 6 or 7 standalone releases that can be inserted into any campaign you want. And then there were also like 5 investigator decks that you could buy and invest in. And all of these add and change up the game however you like. And that might sound like an overwhelming and expensive investment, but the very best part of this game is that none of it is mandatory. You can pick and choose whatever expansions or standalone scenarios that you want to invest in first. My first expansion here was the Murder at the Excelsior Hotel, which was a standalone scenario that was very fun, and the Dunwich Legacy campaign, which was also really cool. And you don't have to buy everything in the game unless you're like me and love it so much that you have a roadmap to what expansions you want to get next so that you can see everything that this game has to offer. I like this game a lot. A lot. You see, the reason I like this game so much is that I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering, like a lot. Like I played so much Magic the Gathering, it was like, oh my god, so much. I'm so sorry. But I eventually stopped playing Magic the Gathering because the game got too expensive for me, and then I wasn't really just meshing with the community very well, but that's entirely an anecdotal thing. But the thing that I hated was that if I wanted to partake in a tournament at my local game shop and an expansion had just released, well, I would have to invest in booster packs to find cards and refix my deck so it would actually fit the rules of the tournament. But if I wanted to partake in an open tournament where cards from any expansion as old as time, obviously except for like insane cards, were allowed, well, then I would be going up against guys who had been playing Magic the Gathering for 20 years and they have nickeled and dimed their decks to be the most refined OP thing ever, and eventually I just kind of got bored of it. For years, I have had this like Magic the Gathering shaped hole in my heart, but Arkham Horror has finally scratched that itch that I have been looking so long for. I get the satisfaction of like building a deck and kicking ass with it, but without the terror of knowing that I have spent so much money on it and half of my deck is duplicate cards that I'm never gonna use. Except for you dirty, dirty fucker. I get to experiment and engage in the deck building mechanics and create new exciting decks or meme decks or things that I think would be fun or funny, and I get to experience the world, and the art of these cards is so grotesque and eerie and gross, and it serves the atmosphere perfectly. But oh my god, the best part, the very best part of this game, and the thing that I have been dying to talk about this entire time, is the fact that this game is cooperative. That might not seem like a big deal, but to me, it's huge. I don't teach this game to my friends and then turn around and then wipe the floor with their ass. I teach my friends this game, and then the game wipes the floor with our collective ass. And I have enough cards to play with a team of upwards to 4 players who can all have different investigators and wield different cards and power in their deck, and it's so cool. I can also teach everyone at the table how to play while we play. I can just establish like the core mechanics at the very beginning and then get into all of the nitty-gritty while we're playing. I don't have to nitpick and be boring and present like a slideshow at the beginning before we even get into playing, which is actually a great thing for a game like Arkham that has so much depth and complexity to it, because it's kind of overwhelming. So the ability to teach while you play gets people invested in the stakes and how to play, but also doesn't bore them with a slideshow at the beginning. And you see, things like that just wouldn't be possible if you weren't working together. Arkham Horror is not a PvP game. It is a game where you and your friends are all working to fight the game itself. There are turns where the game is like, oh shit, here's the thing, oh shit, here's the thing, and then you have to fight the thing, and it's always blocking your path to get where you need to go. And so when you're working together, it has like this sense of adventure and camaraderie, and you're always fighting against what feels like an endless path of absolute bullshit, like you're wading through a river of just actual literal shit. And the stakes in terms of the story are massive. They're world-ending, universe-consuming eldritch beasts beyond our plane of comprehension. But when it comes to the stake of individual players, well, it's much more fine-tuned. You see, if a player goes down in the middle of a scenario, they're not going to be out for the rest of the campaign. They're just out for that scenario, and then they're going to jump right back into the next scenario with a little bit of trauma, whether it be sanity or like health trauma or maybe some extra weaknesses, but they're not dead. The game manages it very well. Editing Jaden here. Sorry for the abrupt change in pace. I have just realized that I am missing a paragraph worth of footage, so please enjoy this slow zoom in on Q2's magnificent eyes as I read the part from the script that I am missing. Here it goes. And if all players were to go down in the same scenario, the game doesn't end there. You just get the most unfortunate ending for that specific chapter and move on with your story, getting far worse for everyone involved. However, I have not had everyone go down in the middle of a campaign. Only during the final boss has everyone just fucked up. And this is because I have never played on the hardest difficulty for a very particular reason. You see, I'm a little bitch baby, and the game is really fucking hard. Thank you. Continue enjoying your video. I haven't said this yet, but the game can be played alone if you are so intrigued to do so, and I have done so multiple times, and I actually really enjoy it. However, even though the game scales in difficulty according to the number of players there are, so the more players, the more difficult, the less players, less difficult, it is still an extremely difficult game, even on the easiest difficulties, making winning by yourself really difficult, and I have yet to do so. And, you know, even playing with people, like 4 people around the table, it's still pretty damn difficult. However, we have won some, we've lost some, but even when we lose, which is more often the case, you know, we're friends, we're hanging out, there's roarous laughter and heartbroken tears galore. But when you play by yourself and you get your ass kicked, well, there's sort of this shame you feel when you start to like pick everything up and start to put it away, and you just know deep down in your heart that you could have done better. Look, I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of this game's lore, of this game's mechanics, of this game's character, of its world. I haven't even begun talking about the actual like gameplay from a mechanical standpoint. Like, I didn't even touch on the chaos bag, and to be perfectly honest with you, that's because the game is overwhelming at first. There was a lot to learn, and there was a lot to figure out, and there was a lot to keep track of. It is not a beginner's card game, in my personal opinion. But if it is something that you are at all intrigued by or interested in, and you think that it would be kind of fun to check out, I have links down below that go into actually how to play the game so that you can get a sense of like what the actual game is. This, for me, was more of like an emotional word vomit to just try to explain like, just at its core, like what I like about the game. And it's the fact that I can sit down with friends and we can play at the table. And it's not a trading card game, so I like know what I'm getting when I buy it, but I can also make all kinds of unique and fun decks. There's a story, and some of the stories are really, really fun. Like, I didn't even touch, there's a really cool expansion where you're on a train, and like this thing is like taking the train out, and so you're like losing train cars, and you have to keep pushing forward on the train, and it's really fun. I love this game. And I wanted to share my love of this game with other people in the hopes of getting other people interested in the board game so that once all this bad stuff is over, I can find myself in a game shop at an Arkham event and I can really just enjoy it. You know, I want so badly to be at an Arkham event and play one of the massive, like 20-player shop-wide events that are a huge cooperative scenario, which, yes, is actually a thing. There are certain packs that are designed to be played with like an entire game store, and that's so cool. That's so cool to me. Cthulhu has been here the entire time. Oops. Well, Louie, I hope you're happy with this as like a taste of what could have been. When I made that bigger board game video, honestly, it started with talking about Arkham Horror and it kind of spiraled into all of the other board games that I've liked and invested in over this quarantine period, but I'm really glad that I scaled it back and just talked about Arkham Horror. So thank you guys, all of you who watched this, for joining me for another week of whatever this is. If you liked it, please feel free to like and subscribe. Follow me on all of my socials. It's HorrorKing_123 on everything, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, you know. But if you subscribe, you know, you won't miss out on one of my live streams that happens every week here on the channel at 6 p.m. But that's all for me. Cthulhu and I must part now, but make sure to catch me in 2 weeks when my penis constantly gets small disease finally catches up to me and my dick becomes so tiny that it collapses in on itself and creates a black hole. All right, I'm done. Bye.